Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Desaster, Churches Without Saints, out June 4th on Metal Blade Records. This album has 11 tracks, 46 minutes in length, and this is the band's 9 full-length studio album. They are a German black thrash metal band. Now this album is very compact, very robust in the structure and in the sound. When you look at the way it's put together, it has an intro, it has an outro, it just doesn't really have a middle point. So it has some of its borders really well defined, but not all of them are clear in allowing you to really understand exactly where you are within the record itself. And that perhaps is the main concern that I have with the overall structure of the album, because it gives you a sense of side A and side B. Now the good news is that side A is as strong as side B. You really don't lose anything. The same aggression, the same intensity, a lot of the same elements are there from one to the other. You could actually alternate them, and I don't think you're going to hurt the playability or fluidity of the album. It's the middle point that the issue is where the issue resides. You have Churches Without Saints, perhaps one of the most, if not the most important song on this record because of what it offers. It's outside the box when you compare with everything else that the album has in store. Different atmosphere, different approach, different influences. So a song like this really deserves to be in the middle point in order to break the record into two, to give you a clear divide and give you a clear sense of where you are within the album. And it's not there. It comes a little bit too early for me as far as the overall track listing is concerned. So it kind of makes that middle part of the record feel slightly chaotic. It gives you a little bit of a sense of losing track of where you are in the album, and then it takes you a couple of songs to get your grounding again, to feel like you're back on your path and you're clearly moving towards that finish line. So I would have loved to see this song in the middle of the record give you that defined break, because you do have a defined starting point in the intro and a defined ending in the outro. Once you get into the soundscape, black metal, thrash metal, old school approach through and through, that's what you're gonna get. It has a potent sound, it has a balanced sound, and you don't really see a lot of changes as far as the overall volume and approach is concerned from top all the way to the bottom, like I said, with the exception of Churches Without Saints. Everything else outside of that feels very robust, it feels very powerful, but you have songs that are predominantly driven by thrash metal influences, some songs having a little bit more of a black metal push to them, and then there's some tracks that really merge those two worlds together, allowing you to start more as one, finish more as the other. So there's a little bit of everything for the listener. There's not just one genre that completely dominates the performance, that completely dominates the overall soundscape. There's just a way of coexisting with these two different styles, with these two different genres, and how much can you get out of each in order to make these songs as impactful as possible. But I love all the elements that are coming together. A lot of melody, a lot of drivenness, a lot of griminess, a lot of darkness. This is a very dark sounding record all around. It's dark in the sound, it's dark in the atmosphere, so I love all of these elements coming together. And then that old school approach, that old school flavor, it's really the best way to encapsulate what this album is all about. Now within that sound there are two drivers of the experience, the drums and the guitars. I like the drums because I didn't feel like they were defined by one role or one pattern from beginning all the way to the end. They were not there just to ground the record and then grounding the record with every single track and not doing anything else. They were not there just to be thunderous all the way through. They were not there with a flat sound, flat approach that really dissipates and makes the album feel a lot thinner. They were a little bit of all of the above. They did some of one in one song, some more of the other in another. So they had a little bit of a diverse approach to them, and that diversity kind of became the fingerprint of what the drums will do throughout the whole record. So you kind of got used to those changes from track to track, going where the song was going, not necessarily dictating where the song needed to go. Same thing could be said for the guitars. Some songs a little bit more grimy, a little bit darker, a little bit melancholic. Some songs a little bit more driven, a little bit more chunky, a little bit more melodic. So there's a little bit of that black metal, a little bit of that thrash metal influence coming into the guitars and helping the songs have a clear path of where they needed to go. The overall execution as far as what you get, the atmosphere that you get out of the tracks, stays very balanced throughout, regardless of in which direction they're pulling you or pushing you, regardless if it has a black metal influence or a thrash metal influence. But at the end of the day, the guitars are really dictating a little bit more of the dynamic mechanisms of the songs, giving a little bit more ebbs and flows to the tracks, and helping making what the drums are doing become a little bit more consistent across both sides. Even though they're working in different planes and different lanes, they're not really intersecting, but they have the same goals in mind, and therefore it feels like they're really working well together, like I said, but separated at the same time. On top of this, you have the vocals. perfect vocals for a record that has this sound, this approach. I mean, they're demonic. I think that's the best way to approach it. They have this old school grime to it. They always feel like they come from a deep place, pushing all the way through, getting everybody out of the way, and trying to reach that forefront of the tracks, adding a lot of aggression, adding a lot of intensity, adding a lot of heaviness, and being super consistent from top to bottom. Perhaps the outro being the only song where the vocals give you something completely different. And I love it because the outro is in German and it has a different approach, a different tone, a completely different delivery. It really gives you a sense of finality. Outside of that song, the vocals are super consistent. What you get from one song is exactly what you're going to get in the next track. So while the structure of the songs is changing, while the drums are perhaps picking up different elements as they progress, while the guitars are dictating different directions in which you can take to reach that final destination, the vocals are staying right down the middle all the way through. Nothing is really changing, and you need something like that in order to allow this record to feel as compact as possible. Because at the end of the day, this is a record that you're going to walk away feeling that this is a great album. But it's an album that doesn't necessarily have songs that immediately scream at you like these are singles, like these are bangers. This is an album that really lives by the quality of the whole. It doesn't need 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 songs to dictate the overall quality of the record and perhaps hide some of the deficiencies that exist in some of the other tracks. This to me is an album that works as one. It works as a unit. I don't feel like this is a record that's designed to be consumed on a track by track basis. It's really designed to be listened to from beginning to end. You see that in the structure, you see that in the soundscape, you definitely see that in the overall approach that it has. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Failing Trinity, a more thrash-driven track, killer riff. That's the thing that pulled me into this song, is how killer the riff is on this track. This song feels like it's moving 100 miles an hour. The vocals fit like a glove, they add aggression, they add intensity, and that's a really the perfect partner for a song that's moving with this kind of intent. There's a lot of darkness in the riff, a lot of heaviness as well. It really gives you a little bit of a sense of these two things coming as one, if you will. The chorus is a little bit more melodic, but it also picks up a little bit more heaviness. So it changes ever so slightly. It doesn't change too much, but it changes enough to give you a sense of a break between the verses and the chorus, which is important in order for you to get some ebbs and flows within the track itself. The chorus is a little bit more linear, but overall this is a song that doesn't really have peaks and valleys. It just has some slight changes as you go from one section to the other. And if there's a banger on this album, this track is definitely it. Next is Churches Without Saints. Like I said, this is perhaps the most important song on this record. Because it's so different from everything else. It just gives you a different feel, it gives you a different atmosphere. It's a more melancholic track, it moves slower, it's all about the atmosphere. It has a bigger black metal influence specifically in the atmosphere that it has, but also in the structure and a little bit in the sound that it carries. It just has such an impact to you as the listener. It just feels so dark, but at the same time it feels so welcoming. It feels so at ease and in peace when you're listening to it. But the content of the track itself is very volatile. The lyrics are the complete opposite of peace. So there's a lot happening in the song. There is something happening underneath the surface that's perhaps not as visible, and then there's exactly what you're going to take from it, which is everything that is on top of it. So I just love how this song is put together. I love the construction. I love the delivery. I just love the methodology behind it. It's just an outstanding track. And like I said, such an important track in the overall design of this record. Last but not least, Primordial Obscurity. The drums on this track are thunderous. This is a song where they allow the drums to come a little bit more into the forefront, to play a more of a predominant role as far as heaviness, as far as tempo, as far as aggression is concerned. The guitars offer a little bit more melody, but they packed well that melody with a driven sense of motion that really catapults the track forward. And then when you pair that up with the heaviness of the drums, it just feels like this is a song that's moving towards you, not necessarily moving fast or moving at an incredible speed, but it's definitely moving at you. And it's moving not just with a tempo, but it's also moving with the heaviness that it carries, both from the drums and the way the guitars come across. So really consistent from that perspective, and consistent across these two different elements, staying very linear all the way throughout. Now there is a dip in the middle, so you get this sense of beginning, then this aggression and this darkness. The song stays it stays off course, if you will. It kind of completely changes. It goes in a different way. It's still linear, but it's linear at a different platform. So it's a song that's going one way, then it changes into a different level, stays very linear across that platform, and then it comes back again to the exact same point in which it started. So it's a song that feels like a sandwich. The beginning of the song is exactly like the end of the song as far as the structure, as far as the soundscape, as far as how the elements work, and then in the middle you have something very different from it. But all parts are linear in the way they're constructed. They're not chaotic. They always feel very controlled. They're just in different platforms. They're just at different lanes. So I like how this song is put together. I like the style, I like the construction, and I like what it has to offer. This is it. This is Desaster with Churches Without Saints, out June 4th on Metal Blade Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.